Welcome, everyone. Welcome to one of the ongoing New Jersey Film Festival Filmmaker Q&As that we've been doing for the last 2 years because of the pandemic. But as we'll be doing a hybrid festival for our 40th anniversary celebration part 2, as the New Jersey Film Festival is celebrating its 40th year in the spring of 2022. And people say, oh, you're showing in March and April. No, no, no. We're attached to Rutgers University, and we're showing as part of the spring semester, which actually begins at the end of January. So our film festival will be taking place on select Friday, Saturday, and Sunday evenings between January 28th and February 20th. We selected about 40 films from 633 entries from around the world. So we have only showing about 3% of what we got. So you're getting to see the creme de la creme that was selected by a jury, which consists of students, academics, previous film winners at our festival, film festival winners, as well as members of the press. So we have a really wonderful jury, very sophisticated. Every film gets evaluated and scored, and you know, it takes a lot to get a film into our film festival. So it's a very prestigious thing, and we're very pleased to present to you guys today. 2 of the younger filmmakers will be screening who have a lot of talent, and I'm sure you'll be seeing them on the big screen someday soon at your local theater. We have Stacy Chu, who's actually a Central Jersey native, and she now lives out in California, and she's going to be there at the screening, as well as Bianca DeMarco, who's from New York City, and she's going to be at the screening too, which will be taking place on Friday, February 11th. And the hybrid screening works this way. A number of the screenings will have a live screening, and they will be taking place at 7 p.m. And the film program that Bianca and Stacy are part of will be on Friday, February 11th, is a short program, which consists of a series of short documentaries and short fiction films. And there'll be a 7 o'clock screening of the live program, but you can watch it anytime during the day as well, on demand online. So I'll show you guys how you'd be able to buy tickets and how the setup works. But we also have Izzy Bonvini here. She's going to be helping me ask questions of these wonderful film directors. Izzy's part of our jury, and she's been actively doing this for the last couple of years, and she's a real pro and will be writing on these movies too. So please welcome everyone. All right, so let's talk about the 2 movies. Everybody's seen these movies too. I shared movies with the 2 filmmakers, and Bianca's movie is called Threads of Desire, and Stacy's movie is called Lla mame Chinita. And one is set in Mexico, one is set in Italy, and both focus on young women kind of at a crossroads, perhaps. Tell us about your movie. Stacy, you go first.
My movie is about a woman from China, and it takes place during the COVID-19 pandemic, and it's about her feeling the pressures of what it means to be a young woman in China, and kind of the social pressures and family pressures that's expected of you. And her life is just building and building, and you know, everyone's pressuring her either to settle down or have kids of that sort, and she kind of just takes off to go to Mexico, and we don't really know why, but as the film goes on, you start to gather why. And it's an impulsive decision, and I don't think it's a decision that she fully understands, and it's about her journey in Mexico and how it helps her soul.
Very excellent.
Yeah.
And you star in the movie too. We'll talk about
Yeah.
that in a few minutes. And Bianca's movie is called Threads of Desire, and that one's set in Italy. Tell us about your movie too, Bianca.
Yeah, so my film is, as you said, also about a young woman, but she is a farmer. She lives in a very isolated and cold and wintry farm in the hills of Tuscany. And we see her, she's kind of in a life, you know, surrounded by men and dirt and grime. And one day she's in town, and she sees a beautiful dress that is being purchased by a beautiful and glamorous woman. And she happens to run into the woman and picks up a package that she leaves behind, and she decides to bring that package home. And we discover that in that package is the beautiful dress that she saw in a shop. So she feels kind of tormented about this decision, and she decides to keep the dress and not return it, but it kind of spirals her into a bit of guilt and self-doubt until she kind of explodes and decides to try on the dress and frolic. But we never really know if that's a dream or if it's really what's happening in her life. So it's a little bit of a fantasy, a little bit of a melodrama, a little bit of a realistic tale, I guess.
Yeah, it's beautifully shot, and you shot yours on film, right? You shot on 16?
Yes, on 16 millimeter.
It looks beautiful. It's really luscious, and I think it's nice to see students still shooting on film. Stacy, what did you shoot on?
I shot on a mirror, Alexa.
Very cool. So
Yeah.
one digital, one film, but they're both very beautifully shot, and the locales that you used are just amazing. Izzy, your turn. You get to jump in and ask some questions.
Okay, so I think I'll start with a question for Stacy, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So you have like a lot of very clear indicators as to where the film is taking place, like right at the very beginning. Like Lulu's holding the brochure for Baja California, and we see the Mexican flags. I was just wondering if, the decision seems pretty intentional.
Yeah.
Do you think that if you hadn't included those, that, our understanding of the location and kind of Lulu being as out of place as she felt would have been as effective?
I think because the film is largely pretty silent and there isn't much like dialogue or scene, and it's about a single person just like traveling, I think I needed to include as much setup as possible, especially like visually, even if it's like almost a little on the nose, because I just wanted clarity, especially. So I do think without those factors, people can assume that they would be confused in the beginning. Like they might think maybe she just lives there. So I wanted to like use, especially something that's like a brochure where, it screams tourists.
Well, since we're on the subject, what are the difficulties of shooting in a foreign land? Since both of you are shooting in locations that are not considered home. Well, maybe that's not true.
Yeah.
Tell us, Bianca, what was it like shooting in Italy? I mean, you had to deal with different frame rates, perhaps, or the electric impulses might have been different with your camera if you plugged in. Is that true, or?
So I grew up in Italy. I spent kind of the first part of my childhood in New York, and then from 7 to 18, I lived in Italy. And I grew up in Florence, and that's where we shot. So I always wanted to make something there. I kind of came into filmmaking and later, when I started a graduate film program. So I always wanted to go back home, quote unquote home, and shoot something. So I thought it was going to be fairly easy because it's like, oh, I know where I'm going. I know people there. And obviously, when you actually go and make something and try to make a film, there's always complications that come up. So I found a farmhouse, which was the main location where we shot. And luckily it had electricity because many other places that I saw didn't even have electricity. So it's like, okay, there's some electricity. But not all the plugs worked, so there was always like some complications there. I had to call the guy that owned the house because the breakers kept, malfunctioning. There was no heating. There was only a big fireplace where everybody just huddled. But luckily, we didn't really have a lot of equipment. It was very, very lean. We just had a camera, a set of lenses, and a little LED panel for light. So we didn't really have trouble charging things because we didn't have many things to charge. So from a technical standpoint, I guess our scarcity was actually a good thing.
How long did it take you to film in Italy?
We shot for 5 days. The film is actually was a little bit longer in the script than what it is in the final cut. So we shot about 5 days. Some days were half days because it started raining, or and one day our cars actually got stuck in the mud, so we couldn't go to we couldn't actually get to another location where we had to film that day. So roughly about 5 days.
I kind of wish your film was longer. Any desire to expand on the story?
Yeah, I actually had when I first got the idea, it started like um, much before. So it was kind of like there was a whole prequel, and like we see her getting married and then settling down into this new place. But no, I had some restrictions from my program where that kind of made it more concise. Maybe in the future I'll expand it.
I think there is the seed for something larger for sure. No question. So Stacy, tell us about your experiences. I mean, it looks like you had a Mexican crew. I mean, your producers are they all have Spanish names, so.
Yeah. So I shot I went to film school for undergrad as well, and my family's from China, so I shot a film abroad previously, and it was just like really fun and very fresh, and it's definitely very difficult because it's a different country and you have to figure out like gear and crew. It was a much smaller project, so with this film, I had a half a crew from Los Angeles and half a crew from Mexico that we hired from like Tijuana locally, and it was good. It was a lot of the producers were people that I knew from grad school. Like one of them was from grad school, and the others were Mexican American, and one of them was a local producer. And it just got bigger and bigger. It started off as a small project, and then it just grew and grew. And it was I live in Los Angeles right now, and it's just sometimes with the permitting and all those like stuff, it can get very discouraging to make a film because it's very expensive and there's a lot of rules. But I think because we were in a town that was small and not typically for shooting, we were able to get a lot of locations, even though they're very public locations. And people were very, very nice about it. We were nervous that people will be uncomfortable, people looking into the camera, but it was like a great, like, I don't want to say vacation, but it was a great trip that I think everyone really enjoyed. But at the same time, we were doing something we love, which is making a movie.
Yeah. And how long did it take you to make your film?
So we shot mostly around sunlight. So we shot about 10 days, actually.
Cool.
Yeah.
And the process to complete the film took both of you how long? Stacy, how long did it take for you?
The process took quite a long time, much longer than I wanted. Post was the longest time. I shot in November, but I only started prep in August, September. So the beginning was very fast, but then it took a while because the holidays hit and things just got slow. And we were editing remotely at first, which was really difficult. I am not a fan of that at all. So I completed the film. It took about like 6 months, I would say safely.
How about you?
6 months.
Yeah. How about you, Bianca?
Yeah, it was similar for me as well. We shot in December of 2019. I prepped for about a month before then. And then post took a little bit of time. I was part of my grad program. I had to work on other sets. So I was on about 3 other sets before I actually was able to start editing my film. So we started editing in the end of January 2020, and then we kind of continued the whole year. Luckily, I live with my editor, so we were able to edit, and we had Avid on our computer, so we were able to edit fairly quickly, I guess, amidst the whole mess of
it looks like you just got in before all hell broke loose.
Yeah, I mean, the sound mixing and everything, that took another year because I had to find someone and I didn't really have much money to spend, so but all in all, it worked out, and I'm just happy that there's something finished. And
they're both magnificent films. Izzy, please ask another question.
Okay, so this is another question for both of you. What was the process of casting your films when filming on location in different countries like for you?
Do
Do
I can go.
yeah, go for it. Yeah.
I was pretty scared at first because I didn't really know anybody in film back in Italy. So I reached out first to local film commissions, and at first I was going to shoot in a different region, where my grandmother lives, because I figured grandma, she can make food and
Yeah.
for the people on the set, so it kind of works out. So I reached out to the local film commission there, and they actually they're pretty well known. They're in Bologna, and they do this big festival, and they restore films, and they work with Martin Scorsese. Like, so they have some pretty good connections, and so they referred me to a local casting person, and luckily that person did a lot of like street casting, so which was kind of what I was looking for. I really like working with people who aren't professional actors.
Yeah.
And he basically went up in the hills and in the mountains and was able to find the character that I wrote in real life. So Lisa, who plays Bettina in the film, the main character, she actually owns a farm, and she's a sheep farmer, and she spins wool, and there was a lot of crossover with the character that I wrote. So even though she had never acted before, I kind of felt a good connection with her. So I was very lucky on that point. It was actually harder to cast the men in the film, but I kind of reached out to people that worked in film commissions and asked all my friends, and that's kind of how I was able to cast. But it was pretty hard until I actually went there a month before the shoot and was able to meet people in person. I wasn't able to lock down my casting.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Stacy?
Yeah. So I linked up with a local producer from Tijuana. Tijuana, and he was super helpful because he's like kind of connected. So I had a casting director who helped me cast the mom and the two boys. And the rest of the people were similar to Bianca, which is kind of like street casting, which was, it was a little bit difficult because I didn't really have rehearsals. Even with the boy and the mom, I met them the day of the shoot. And it was actually a little bit of a struggle just to like loosen them up, but they are actors, so they were very professional, and they did really great. I was a little nervous because it's like a hectic scene, but my AD is also a director, so he was also helping me a lot with like translating and getting it going. And the rest of the people were just people that worked there. Like the cab driver, he owns the cab, and the restaurant cafe server, he works at the cafe. And we were just kind of like really pulling people from the street, which was a little nerve-wracking, especially for the producers, but it was also just like really fun to see. You know, it was like every day was like a new adventure.
Yeah, and how hard is it to direct yourself? I mean, you're the lead of the film.
Yeah. So I have done it before. And I went to school for filmmaking, and I went to grad school for filmmaking, but I started with acting. And so it was hard. And I don't really like looking at playback too much because I don't like, it just takes a long time. But my DP was really helpful in just telling me it feels good. And I had friends that were also, the producers are helpful. Even my production designer, Laura, was like super helpful in just helping me nail the tone. And we shot a lot of footage, and it's about just kind of like trusting it and just kind of going with it. But there were moments where, it did slow down because like at the end of the day, you still have to like shot list for the next day when you just want to wrap it up. And it's hard because, he used Artemis, the camera tool. He just did a lot of videos, and he'd be like, okay, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? We would do that every day at the end of each shoot day. And then we would decide for the next day.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do you guys have questions to each other? I mean, you've both seen each other's movies. So
yeah.
I mean, I think since normally we would have some kind of interaction with filmmakers at the festival, it's not as easy. I mean, don't feel obligated, but maybe
Mhm,
if
mhm.
you have a question to ask one another, now's a good time. And
Yeah. I mean, some of the questions that I wanted to ask was kind of uh, like how you, like why you chose that location and kind of like how the shooting was, which was mainly answered. I'm curious, like what month did you shoot in? Because you said it was very cold, and it does look very cold.
Yeah, it was December, and
Oh, right, you
for,
said it's summer.
for
Wow.
some reason I forgot that it gets cold in Italy as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really rainy. It was really muddy. Luckily, I didn't really have much of a crew. I had about 3, 4 people in my crew.
Yeah.
So I bought everybody rain boots, and
Wow.
they lived in those shoes. We had oh
Wow.
gosh, it was really muddy, but
Yeah, but I think you could really feel it, like based off, like because
yeah.
of the weather, you could really get a sense of like what
yeah,
it's like being there. It's such a great tone.
Yeah, it was again, we kind of got, because this film was made in conjunction with my graduate film program. We kind of get
Hmm.
given slots. Oh, I'm so sorry. There's a delivery happening today at some
oh
point, I
my
think I'll
gosh,
tell you.
no worries.
But yeah, so I kind of was just given a slot, and I was like, okay, I'll take winter. I was like, days
Yeah,
are really short. I
I
don't have any lights. Cool. But but yeah,
I think it's really nice. I really like movies like I think like Kurosawa uses a lot of like weather in his films,
mhm,
and it's so nice. I shot a film one in China, and I it was supposed to be March, so like it was supposed to be like blossoms, like very beautiful,
mhm.
but the whole week it was just so cold. It was raining. And in one of the scene, like the character was shivering so much her lips became like purple.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
And it was, yeah, and it was raining, and then we were like, okay, why don't you just carry an umbrella the whole time? And it
Yeah,
actually added to it at the end. So
that's
I
nice.
yeah, I was watching it, I was like, how did you get this place? It looks so beautiful and so like organic and authentic.
Oh, thanks. It was location scouting was really important. I was kind of
Okay.
on my own in a car that my friend had lent me, and I was just driving around, and I would drive up to people's houses that I saw from the street
Wow.
and just kind of knock on their doors and say, hey, do you want to be part of a film shoot?
Wow.
You forget how nice people are, really,
Yeah.
because like there's so many people around that just want to help. Like one of the location of the shop in town, like the woman gave it to us for free,
Wow.
shot there for a whole day. We actually got locked inside too. There was a lot of surreal things that happened, but yeah, we're really lucky. No, I wanted to ask you as well about when you
Yeah.
shot your film, because like I watched it first, and then I went to read the log line. I try to read the log lines after,
Yeah.
because I don't want to know what happens before I watch something. I was like, oh wow, this was actually made during the pandemic. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Did you have a lot of restrictions, or like how did you?
Um, yeah, it wasn't that bad actually.
Yeah,
I think the pandemic was happening, and in August, I think a lot of the filmmakers, like, we were just kind of like going crazy, just stir
yeah,
crazy,
yeah.
and we were just so kind of bored. So a group of us were just I went to grad school with these people, and I was like, do you want to the film was originally set in LA, but we decided, hey, why don't we make it in Mexico? It'll add like a color to it, and it'll just
yeah,
lift it a little more. So we decided to just drive down to Ensenada, which is about an hour away from Tijuana. So it's about like a 3-4 hour drive.
Mm.
Um, and it was COVID wise, it was not that difficult. Everyone got tests. I think the producers were the most nervous ones out of anyone. But Mexico did a really good job of like everywhere we went they were like temperature checking and sanitizing, so we felt really good. And then at the end of the shoot we actually came back and LA was doing pretty bad at that time, so
right,
it was almost like nice to like get away from LA. But the biggest difficulty, which wasn't that much of a difficulty, was transporting the gear through the border. Like we needed to get insurance and like a passport for the gear, and we didn't have too much, but there was a decent amount of like items that needed to
yeah,
be checked out, so that was kind of hard. But other than that, um it wasn't too hard. And it was like nice shooting a movie that took place in COVID, because it's nice to document it, I think, and just,
Yeah.
I don't know, there's something nostalgic for myself too. And everyone, all the people in the background wearing masks. So I think it's like visually nice. And I think Lulu wears it a lot, so she almost hides from us.
Yeah.
So it's important for me, like when we revealed her face. So in some way we embraced it, and it was, you start to love these difficulties after a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say that your film has a very like documentary feel, and I was
Yeah.
curious whether you had
Both of your films, I think they both have this
Yeah.
kind of real look. And I think
Mhm,
that's
mhm.
why, even though they look different and they're in different parts of the world, that the locale comments on the film itself as well. So,
Yeah.
I would give Izzy another chance, but I think we're almost out of time. And what I wanted to do is share screen and show people how they can buy tickets and stuff.
Mhm.
So let me do that real quick. And hopefully you see only this, but of course you see all my other stuff too. But that you go to njfilmfest.com and you just scroll down, and then you click on view schedule and buy tickets, and then everything pops up on our catalog page, hopefully soon. And here we go. And you can see, oh, Stacy in the water. I love, by the way, I wanted to say this. This is our promotional card.
Oh my
So
God.
I'll make sure you get some when I see you.
Yeah.
But we try to find, there's one for a lot of the movies, but that was the one that the committee thought was the best one for our promotional purposes. So anyway, when you get to the catalog page, you just scroll down, and if you highlight the short program and you hit pre-order, that it would open up, and you can pre-order the tickets by clicking on pre-order. Threads of Desire also has this nice photo of Lisa, is it, Bianca?
Yeah, the actress is
Yeah,
called
she's
Lisa.
really great playing Bettina. And there's a couple of different ones that we have throughout, but there's other movies. Joey Skaggs is a documentary about Joey Skaggs, who's the prankster. It's a really wonderful film. Memory Builds the Moment is a documentary about this club matinee that was part of Houston's historic district, and it's really great too. Just Like Water is a really beautiful film from Greece. And then there's COVID Crusader. So there are kind of links with some of the movies. I mean, as a curator, my job is to try to find a home for these movies that's presented to me by the programming committee. And this is about Carla Brown, who lost her husband to COVID, who made it, took upon herself to make a mission of having everybody vaccinated in her area in Louisiana. And that's the lineup for that day. I mean, Just Like Water, yes, we did all of those. So you can explore the site too by going back to festival site, brings you to our welcome page. You can buy a pass. It's $100 to see everything. It's 40 movies. You save it's like half price. If you watched everything, you would save money. If you wanted to see the schedule in a linear form, you can just click on schedule and work your way down and see all the various programs that we have. And again, the programs will be taking place from January 28th to February 20th. And they're on select Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. And you want to just check out individual films, you can hit on the film guide, and you can click on, Lla mame Chinita. And my computer is slow, but the pictures come up for each one of the movies. If you wanted to see Threads of Desire, you work your way down to the bottom. And this is the nice poster and another image from the movie. So yeah, that's how you can check out everything that we have to offer. Let me stop sharing. And again, the program will take place on Friday, February 11th. Stacy and Bianca will both be there for the live screening, which is at 7 o'clock. The films are available for 24 hours on their show date. So you can start watching at 12:01 on the 11th. And you can start watching, and you watch a couple of the movies and you get tired, you want to take a break. You have 24 hours to finish watching. So let's say you start watching at the end of the day. You can still watch into Saturday, But we had a couple of people do this last season because the New Jersey Film Festival is biannual. So we had a fall season and a spring season. And we had this one guy, he'd watch the movie during the day on, you know, on his TV, because you can watch these on through Apple TV and another other apps. Even Eventive has its own app, so you can watch on your widescreen TV at home, on your high def TV. And then he would come to the 7 o'clock screenings when we had them to see the films on the big screen and to meet with the filmmakers. So you guys will be there to do that, hopefully with a large audience, and that will be on February 11th. I want to thank you all for participating in our Q&A. Thanks, of course, to Izzy, our festival juror, for doing this too. And so that's it. Thank you so much.
Thanks
Thank
to
you so
you.
much. Thank you for having us.
Yeah.